Let's talk a little bit more about royalties and the accounting. So typically placers pay out twice a year. Most of the time they get accounted to on a quarterly basis. Record companies pay them, PROs pay them, sync placements come in all the time. It's not necessarily tied to a quarter. But publishers receive the majority of their income on a quarterly basis. But they have to reconcile all of that income against any outstanding advances, any unrecouped advances or unrecouped amounts, and then compile all of the payments and the statements that come in so that the songwriter's total balances are in check. So that process usually takes about a quarter or so. So although they get paid every quarter, they pay out royalties to the songwriter and their publisher, where applicable, on a semi-annual basis, twice a year. Okay. Now that we're talking about money even more, let's talk about advances. I've said this a number of ways within this conversation, but a couple key points that we want to make sure that we understand. Advances are recoupable, not returnable, which means they're not a loan to be paid back if unrecouped. So we've talked about this concept. I am taking a risk as the publisher, paying you, the songwriter, in advance. There's no guarantee that you're going to be able to pay that money back to me off of the earnings of your songs. And that's the only thing I can receive that income from, is earning of those particular intellectual property assets that are under my agreement. I can earn them from performance, I can earn them from mechanicals, I can earn them from sync placements, but that's all I can earn that money back from. And so I want to be very clear that if I don't perform under that agreement, or I don't write great songs, they're not commercially successful, I'm not going to be held accountable in terms of my ability to pay that money back. That's not what they're looking for. Okay. Now, advances can be structured in a number of ways, where the songwriter is either the pure songwriter or they're also the recording artist. We've talked about a number of different ways that the MDRC, the minimum delivery requirement commitment, could be structured. But another caveat here is established songwriters that control their own catalog can use their previous earnings as a basis for how much you should pay for an advance. We see this often, and we'll dive into it more when we talk about record contracts and how the master performs. But really what they're saying here is, if I already know how your catalog has performed within the market for a certain number of years or a certain period of time, I can use that as a basis of projection to see how much I'm going to be able to pay you as an advance that financially makes sense to me as the publisher. So for example, if you earned $100,000 in your catalog last year, I can say it's safe to say I can pay you $75,000 as an advance because I know I'm going to make that money back, probably. However, if you made $100,000, I wouldn't pay you $1 million advance because it's unlikely that you would be able to get that multiple to reach $1 million. It's possible, but it's not likely. And so as a projection, I wouldn't take that risk and pay you an inordinate sum have you not proven it beforehand. Okay. There's a bunch of different ways that you can cut an advance. Literally countless ways that you could put it together, but there's one of a few ways. The first one is that I'm just going to pay you a cold hard lump of cash. You sign this agreement, I'm going to cut you a check for $50,000. Or I can cut you a check, and then I would give you monthly intervals, right? So you sign this agreement, I'm going to give you monthly intervals, almost like a salary. Then there could be kind of a combination of the two. Combination, really, that's the word that I didn't remember. I keep playing with these tassels, where I pay you a portion of your advance up front once you sign this agreement, and then I give you intervals after that. So let's say $50,000 is the amount. I give you $10,000 up front. The remaining $40,000 I pay you across 12 months, right? Again, I can pay you a portion upon commencement, and then a portion when you fulfill certain contractual obligations. So when you turn in your first 2 songs, when you turn in your first 5, when you get your first commercial release, I'll give you more of an advance. A couple more ways. For recording artists, a portion upon signing the agreement, and the remainder once they are accepted, those songs are accepted by the record company. I can give you part of an advance, and then as a publisher, I can buy you recording equipment so that you have something to work with. I can buy you tools to do your job. Or I may just straight up buy you amplifiers, guitars, keyboards, recording equipment, etc., but not give you an actual advance itself. You may not need a salary to live off of, but you may need equipment in and of itself. And then there's a bunch of other ways that we can chop this up in order to show you how many ways you could get an advance. There may also be advances that are due, they're paid to you based off of activity. They're called pipeline advances. So if you've got a song that's just a huge success, you know that the money's coming in, but you need the money now. You can ask your publisher, and more often than not, they'll pay you that money now because they know that it's coming within the pipe. It's in the pipe and is coming to them. Option period advances may also be structured on a minimum maximum basis, determined by a percentage of earnings generated in the contract period prior and the commencement of that option period. So this is, again, another example of what I was talking about. I can give you certain option advances based off of your prior period performance. Okay.